Welcome to the Real Advisor Podcast. TRAP, TRAP. Please follow us and join in the conversation on Twitter @Advisor Podcast, where you can suggest ideas and themes you'd like the TRAP team to discuss. Also remember to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel and leave a 6 out of 5-star review on iTunes. Doing all this really helps us, which means we can do more to help you. Now let's head over to the studio for the latest pile of TRAP.
Yes, indeed, dear Trappist. Welcome back to episode 18 of the Real Advisor Podcast, TRAP, TRAP. My name is Nick Lincoln. Joining me as ever in the digital studio of doom are the three other horsemen of the apocalypse. Andy Hart, Carl the Voice Widger, and Alan the Storyteller Smith, the Trap Pack. Now, gents, we have a show packed full of absolutely nothing, so let's start unpacking it away in our normal high energy, high motivational style. Mr. Hart, you have some reviews of Trap for us.
Yeah, over to me to start the show with a bang. I've got 3 reviews. The first one is from B. Benson 13. Excellent podcast, 5 stars, worth subscribing. Plenty of great content and an excellent listen whilst driving or walking the dog. Next up is Nick Brackets 1. Again, 5 stars. Proper financial planners for proper financial planners. When you pay to attend a conference, you always find it's the conversations you have with the other advisors in the breaks that are the most useful. This podcast is the conference without the boring conference. Well done, gents. Finally is T. Mosley, 5 stars, priceless content for financial advisors. These fellas are doing the job properly. Thank you for giving up your time to share your experience and knowledge. Back to you, Lick Ninkin.
Thank you very much, Andrew. That's lovely. Great. Thank you, Trappers, for the reviews. Mean an awful lot to us. Just give us a little shot in the arm when we need the motivation to keep on doing the Real Advisor Podcast. So let's move on to some topical tidbits and give this episode a timestamp if you're catching up after the event, as it were. I'll go first because I'm just top of the list. Not this particularly anything interesting, but I've noticed in the trade press and the trade media how annuities have suddenly come back or they're trying to make annuities come back into some kind of vogue, given the recent unprecedentedly quick run of base rate rises. Obviously, that's had a positive effect on annuity rates as well. And these people are coming out of the woodwork now. Just because annuity rates aren't as abysmal as they once were, now they're just plain awful. Every third article seems to be from someone saying, oh yeah, annuities should come back into the discussion with clients. And even things like critical yield now should be revisited. I think, really? Are people nuts? So I just did some digging around. 63-year-old female, single life annuity, 10-year guarantee. The best rate I could find was 6%. So you get $100 grand fund, you annuitize it, you're going to get $6 grand a year before tax. All these articles, by the way, they never mention index-linked annuities. So I'm assuming they're just talking about level annuities. Index-linked annuity, the same female client, 63 years old, escalating at 5%. Annuity, the yield is 3.2%. You give up $100 grand to get a starting taxable income of £3,200 a year. And that's the best one I can find. And this is when rates are supposedly better than they used to be. And again, just for interesting comparison purposes, the crossover time never seems to change. That escalating annuity takes 14 years to catch up with the level one. And it's a full 25 years before Mrs. Miggins is actually better off in the round. She's received more income. Who wants more income at the age of 88? Anyway, so I think they're just talking about level annuities because index-linked annuities are a waste of time. You buy an index-linked annuity, all these people saying now they should come back into the fold. Well, I just checked. Inflation, depending on which measure RPI, there's a website I looked at, 13.5%, the increase in RPI from this time last year to now. You buy a level annuity and you are guaranteeing yourself a decline of income, of purchasing power, which is the only thing that matters, of double digits, and that's locked in. It's not like the markets where you have a temporary decline and you can wait for the permanent advance to resume. You buy a level annuity, and you are screwed. Very simplistically, $6 grand annuity after 30 years of inflation at just 4%, you've lost 2/3 of the purchasing power of your money. So please spare me the annuity stuff. If annuity rates get to close to double digits, then I might just be interested. But the world has moved on. And the longer that we talk about these things and what real risk is, the longer we understand that actually investing for 30 years, for 3 decades, which is a bog standard typical retirement, the safest thing you can do is to own the great companies of the world and not to buy a fixed income. A fixed income is a fixed outcome, and it's poverty by design. There you go. My thoughts. I don't know if you want to add anything to that. Andy, you might have something to say.
I didn't know you were so pro annuities, Nick, but moving on from that, I've got a couple of points to add.
I've changed over the years, yeah.
I've been working on a financial planning project with a client. It's quite a complex situation. I'm not going to go into too much detail. But anyway, one of the financial product solutions that have been suggested for the less financially savvy partner is a fixed term purchase life annuity of 20 years. It provides £40,000 a year income escalated at a fixed amount of 3%. Financially, it's a very bad deal in terms of the yield and loss of capital, etc. But just for simplicity, for this person that's not very financially savvy, for this income to just trickle in over the next 20 years during sort of a key period of this person's life. So that's my first point on annuities, so that they have a place, but financially, usually it's a bad idea. But then in terms of lifestyle needs and simplicity, sometimes they come into play. But yeah, in terms of retirement planning for us and our clients, it's generally I agree with your points, Nick. Just to take the yield of the FTSE All-Share and the FTSE 100, which is a bad proxy, but just to give you an idea, the yield of the FTSE All-Share at the moment is 3.39 and the yield for the FTSE 100 is 3.51. So if you just said, look, I'm happy with my 3.5%, but your golden coins are going to come back to you. So you buy this share certificate for 100, they'll pay you a yield of 3.5%. And that yield, because it's the return and the profits of the great companies of the UK, increases every year with inflation. Actually, it outpaces inflation long term. So there are other alternatives, but then they'll say, but Andy, they'll be volatile. But at the end of the day, don't look at the capital value. The yield's going to trickle in and there'll be some volatility with the yield and return. There might be some fees applied to it, so it's not a pure comparison. But yeah, just looking at like a dumb alternative, there are slightly better alternatives available. Yeah, and at the end of that period, you still have the capital growth of the FTSE All-Share, the FTSE 100, or whatever. Yeah, I know that's Anyway, that's any final points on that, Nick?
Well, I mean, the point I was going to just conclude on there was that an escalating annuity, the yield is 3.2%. The yield on the FTSE is 3.2%. Exactly. You're happy to spend the money to buy an escalating annuity. If you're happy. Yeah. So if just write, if you did the same with the FTSE All-Share, just write that money off the same way you would have done with an annuity, right?
Yep.
But come back in 30 years and just see where we are, right?
Come back in 30 years, and I think you have 3 times your money, Nick, 3 or 4 times your money from doing nothing. Forget who gives a frick about the volatility. Over to you, Alan. I think next maybe.
The only thing that you are missing from that conversation is that humans are not rational.
Of course.
And the word guarantee is worth a lot to some people. And we speak from a position of the curse of knowledge, and we say, well, it's fine, markets will come back, don't worry. But there are people who are of a certain age and certain circumstances in their life. Maybe they are widows, maybe they're single people, haven't got a lot of family support, and just say, look, I will guarantee you for the rest of your life, you will get this amount of income. And all the other things pale into insignificance. And maybe you haven't got children, maybe they haven't this. So there are circumstances, and I agree, they're few and far between, but there are some circumstances where an absolute locked-in guarantee is worth something, even if it's from a peace of mind viewpoint and nothing else.
Yeah, okay, Carl, we'll come to you, Carl, in a second. Annuities, to me, if they didn't exist, no one would invent them. Right?
I disagree. They're an insurance policy. They're an insurance policy against living too long. They absolutely are. What do you mean? No, they are.
I think that's a good point.
There are things which could happen in the future.
The world's changed, mate. Pension freedoms and awful annuity rates and a greater understanding of the markets and easy access to low-cost investments. The world has changed. Annuities when was the last time anyone here recommended the purchase life annuity? Because you can sell them every day of the week.
Andrew Hart he just recommended one.
I didn't recommend one.
No, purchase life
in the
annuity.
Mix on the financial
where you convert cash in the bank. Carl.
Yeah, like Alan's point is the most important one here. Like,
thank you.
None of these products would exist if it wasn't for the human behavior issue here, which is, I would love to talk to you about you giving me some return and you guaranteeing my money. It's why structured products exist. It just is what it is. I think it's incumbent on us to try and bring people on the journey with us and take your time to try and explain, the differences between investing in the great companies of the world versus any of these capital guaranteed products or guaranteed income products. So yeah, they're mostly terrible, aren't they? But they do exist, and the flip side of it is that why do some advisors recommend them? It's a nice
they pay commission.
Well, that's the question I was going to ask you, Carl. I mean, how often do you, the guys at Metis Norway, how often do you on a ratio, annuities to drawdown is?
I would safely say I can't remember if we've ever done one. So wow. That's a fact. That is a fact. However, why were annuities invented? You used to have to buy an annuity with your pension. So
yeah,
was it the same over there? Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, but have we? I can absolutely 100% tell you that we have never ever done a PLA. There might have been a couple of CPAs done whereby people were guaranteed 12% annuity rates through all with profit funds and all that kind of stuff. But that would be absolutely the size of it.
Just to get technical on the PLA, I've done PLAs for people that are getting care in the home. So it's like a care annuity, but it's not paid to a care home. So anyway, that's a technical point. Have we done annuities into the ground?
I think we've had a tremendously exciting start to the show talking about annuities, and we can move on now.
I'm glad to see that you are as flexible and open-minded as ever, Mr. Lincoln. Thank you. What's the next subject that we can disagree with?
I might boot you out, right, Mr. Hart? Trap in the wild. God.
Yeah, this was. I was in Manchester in Altrincham. I won't say the firm, but I did a sort of workshop last week. 50 people, lots of fun. About 2.5 hours. Lots of people in the room were Trappists, young advisors, old advisors. So it's great to meet some real Trappists out there in the real world. Shout out to you guys in Altrincham who I was seeing last week. And you also have a story, don't you, Nick, about Trappists in the wild?
Well, I did. I was walking through my local park on Sunday morning, and it's a bit of a metaphor for my life, really, because I was walking one way, and this whole crowd of people were running towards me, and I was the only person going against the grain, and I wasn't particularly popular. But it was one of these park run things, and then they go around the UK. I'm not sure if you have them in Ireland, but every Sunday they're loosely organised, aren't they? And I was just minding my own business. This guy shouts out to me, he says "Nick" as he runs by, and I recognise this guy. I've known him for years, literally since the 1970s, and we're friends. And
Nick, can I buy an annuity?
No, see, that proves my point, because they never shout out, and therefore I'm right. You see?
Yeah.
Well, he might have said, "Nick, can you guarantee my money?"
Yeah.
Anyway, so
what did he say?
Well, he couldn't say much because he was running away from me, as most people tend to do. But afterwards, after he finished his park run, we had a chat on the phone, and he said, "Yeah, I still listen to your podcast." I was thinking, podcast? The Money Hat Tip that finished a couple of years ago. And he said, "No, I listen to the Real Advisor podcast." Now, this chap, he's not in our thing. He doesn't do this thing of ours. He owns his own company, a signage company. So hoardings at football grounds seems to be what he's proper job. Yeah, exactly. So but he listens to Trap. He likes the banter, and now and again he picks up the odd nugget. So it's interesting how, although this obviously is aimed at the advice community, it in little ways it seems to sort of leak out and transcend into the wider thing, which is a great thing.
There's a guy at the gym I go to, and he runs a marketing agency, and I just know him a little bit socially, and he said as well, "Oh, I love your podcast," and I thought it was the other podcast, Bulletproof Entrepreneur. And he said, "No, it's the one with you and your mates on it." So I think it's really funny. He said, "It's really it's interesting, isn't it?" So there's a wider audience, I think, than just financial services folk, which is quite interesting.
Now, at the start of the show, Andy read out some reviews, and one of the reviews said this is like the best bit about conferences are the sort of breakout sessions in between, where you natter with your mates and your peers over a coffee or maybe a warm sherry at the end of the day. And your conference, Mr. Hart, I understand is in the diary. Yeah, correct. Segued nicely there. Andy, tell us about Humans Under Management.
Good. Yeah, I've got Humans Under Management London on the 9th of November in central London. I've got 12 speakers. We got exhibitors, and then I'm hoping for 300 live delegates and 200 live stream delegates. So, yeah, the tickets are launching. They are live now. I'm selling them very well. They're selling really well. I'm approaching about 200 tickets sold, and I'm getting emails all the time about bulk bookings. So I'm very, very confident that I'm going to sell this out, hopefully many months before. But yeah, I've got tickets available at the moment. Go to humansundermanagement.com and follow the links, and then hopefully you can buy a ticket. I don't have any sort of trap discounts because we are not that organised here, but maybe next time we can do that. And then South Africa will be selling, I think, next week. South Africa is on the 19th of September. So anyhow, that's enough about that. So yeah, if you want to get a ticket, go to humansundermanagement.com and follow the links and buy a ticket and come along to, I believe, the premier conference for financial advisors in the UK. I think this is going to be my 13th show, the one in London. So yeah, a well-oiled conference machine. I want the talks to be worth coming, but yeah, certainly mingling and socializing with your peers is where a lot of good stuff happens. So yeah, that's it. Back to you, Nick.
And we do tend to be very well oiled at the end of the hum day. Right. So this is an interesting one, Mr. Smith. You put us on. I think it was either put us onto this. It was, and then he's subsequently gone public with it because it's in a podcast. Tell us about Mr. Colin Lawson and his idea of selling his business to his clients, because this is novel to me. I know it absolutely rung a bell for Carl. And there might be a Trappist or two listening to this who might think, "Wow, this could be this could really change things."
This is a great idea.
Okay. Well, as we're talking about podcasts, I came across this via a podcast. There is another podcast, because it seems to be the thing, called Executives in Wealth Management, run by a guy, Thomas, who I was lucky enough to be guest on that recently. But a previous episode, which has just been released, is Thomas interviewing a gentleman called Colin Lawson, who's the founder of a business called Equilibrium. Now, I don't know Colin, haven't met him, but by all accounts, he runs a very, very successful advisor business up in Cheshire, Manchester neck of the woods. And I listened to the podcast interview with him, and it's all very good. And interestingly, followed a fairly similar path to my own in terms of what he did and how he got started. But the thing that I found really, really intriguing was right towards the end, and it was titled the elegant exit. I think what he called it is, he was making the point, he's got his business to such a size that the only sort of people that might be interested in some of the big nationals and the big consolidators in terms of planning his own exit or partial exit, or, taking some money off the table as a business owner. And what he has come up with as an idea, which I just thought was revolutionary, I hadn't heard of it before, with that he took a rough proxy for a business valuation being 3% of the assets under management, which is generally accepted, ballpark as a starting point in terms of evaluation. Obviously, there's a lot more to it than that, but 3% of the assets under management. Colin's view was he would retain a third of the business in terms of his own ownership, so he can carry on managing it, growing it, be responsible for day-to-day. But in order to kind of de-risk his life and get some money off the table, he would sell 2/3 of it. So he would sell 2% of the assets under management. And the people he'd sell it to was his clients. He would sell it to his own client bank. And the pitch to the clients was, would you swap 2% of your liquid investment capital to have partial ownership of this business that you like, and you trust on an ongoing basis? You'll own a part of it. Presumably you'll receive a dividend. You'll have some ownership involvement. And he said the take up from his clients has been fantastic. So some have said, I'd pay 2% not to have to go and change advisor and find another advisor, never mind anything else. So, and I immediately thought, this sounds really complicated. How on earth do you do that? There must be some FCA rules that make me, but apparently, according to the podcast, and I'm due to have a conversation with Colin, but apparently it's perfectly able to be, it has been done in the past. You can do it. There's a particular way you do it. And I think all of a sudden it brings in a new dynamic into the sort of business transition opportunities that exist, rather than sell out to the highest bidder or to a consolidator. you sell it to your own clients. Of course, they've got skin in the game. They've got interest. It's very much in their interest to refer their friends and to help you grow the business over the years to come. So I thought it was really, really interesting. I know it's sparked the attention of you guys. I know that Andy, to start off with, has got something he'd like to add to this conversation. Mr. Hart.
Yeah, in the words of Alan Smith, Colin Lawson's a close personal friend of mine. I've known Colin for many years. Yeah, runs a cracking business. I think this is the greatest thing I've ever heard in terms of the exiting of a founder, owner, or a financial advice business. The general back of a napkin is 4% of assets. So already he's undervaluing the business, which is, again, a nice move. And then selling 2/3 and keeping 1/3 so he's got skin in the game. I think it is the greatest exit any owner of the wealth management business can have. They're taking a massive haircut to what they could get out in the open market. I know clients might not appreciate that, but hopefully that gets across to the clients as well, that you're actually buying this firm at a discount, and also then you're going to continue to be clients of the firm, owners of the firm. I think it's absolutely genius. Over to you, Nick, and then we'll have Carl.
Well, let's go straight to Carl, because from my point of view, this gives me the heebie-jeebies. You've got suddenly your clients or your co-shareholders. It would give me the sweats. Carl.
Tell us what you really think, Nick. I when this was brought up in our private WhatsApp group, I just thought this is amazing stuff. And look, I take your point, Nick, and also Alan said it. There are significant challenges when you take a step back and think, how would this work, etc. Right? But leaving that aside, I think isn't it just beautiful to have a model whereby it's not going down the road of a private equity firm going to get rich or going to try and get rich, or making the consolidators or the aggregators even bigger. And I remember way back, the reason Metis was set up was because the whole industry here was the provider number one, the pension company number one, was going to make money, and they made shitloads of money. And then the intermediary, the broker, was number two, and way, way, way down the list was number three. And that's why we set up Metis, to try and put the client number one and the providers very definitely bottom of that list. So I just think this is another way, and a very innovative way. I certainly never heard it before, of how to, get the clients involved. And as you boys know, I've been big on that as well. So, I think there's absolutely, there's lots in this. I'm not sure. I'm sure he's thought it out, right? Long and hard. And I'm sure this is probably a 3-year project that he's just bringing now, and he's putting out a podcast. So I'm sure he's thought all this through, but would it not be better off to, maintain control and then only sell maybe 49% of the business or something like that? That was kind of some of my immediate thoughts on it. But yeah, I like, absolutely brilliant. And don't we need just great brains like this? Yep. From people who work in the business, who do real financial planning. And I followed Equilibrium online for the last number of years. And it does seem to be just a great, great business with lots of innovative stuff coming from them all the time. And here's just the latest one. I'd love to see this one working, and this to be a model that could be used in our profession down the line.
Andy.
Alan did touch upon it, but Colin said that he knows someone who's done it and it was successful. So yeah, it obviously has been done before in the UK. Carl, back to your sort of control thing. I don't know if the shares will have different voting rights, et cetera, because you're right, Nick's point. You don't want 784 people having an input of, where the financial planning business is going. You want a leadership team to be in control of that.
Of course you wouldn't. You, in the same ways, if you're owning, 1 or 2% of any business, you're not going to have that. But I would imagine there would be, talk about crowbar, an opportunity to have a sort of client board and executive. There's a half a dozen or a dozen client shareholders who would represent the broader share base, ownership base. I think there's lots of win-wins. We don't need to worry about the detail, the granularity of it. I mean, Colin hasn't done it yet, but he has done it according to the interview on that podcast. He's done his research. There's a specific way you do it. It's a private placement or something like that. That's the legal and accounting experts again. But apparently it has been done. I don't think he would go public unless he's sort of done his homework on this so far. So it's a new thing. Anything that's new and innovative in our sector is great, and it's worth exploring, worth learning more about. So watch the space.
100%. And do you remember, like, it was the last episode or 2 episodes ago, we were talking about, well, where does all this go with the aggregators coming in, the PE firms coming in? And I mentioned, well, the firm that's able to kind of stand alone and stand solid on its own 2 feet, that actually might be a USP. And surely this is a great way of doing that. And also ensuring the longevity of it. And of course, if your clients are engaged, your clients are that referral machine is going to just go into overdrive. Yeah, I just echo a few of the comments. Isn't it just magnificent that someone is using their head and saying there is a different way, and maybe this is the way forward.
Yep.
Okay, great stuff. And yes, he seems very switched on, Colin Lawson. If you listen to the podcast, he's just you can tell there's a brain that's thought this through, and he likes challenges, and he hasn't got where he is without going through numerous challenges. So we wish him all the best. Okay, so Neil Woodford, who was once, as we all know, fated as probably the best active fund manager in the UK. Him and Anthony Bolton. Maybe that baton has been passed on to Terry Smith, but at one stage he was up there. He was the pinnacle of active fund management. Obviously, it's a catastrophic story for him and for his clients and his reputation. And the one thing that your name is your reputation is everything, right? And your name is everything. And once that's sullied, it's. I don't care how much money you've got. It's really, I wouldn't want to be in his shoes. Mr. Smith, you found an article in that left-wing rag, The Times. Talk us through it.
It's in all the papers. It's just, we're putting a timestamp on this, in that it's a compensation deal has now been brokered. It's being offered by the FCA, and it's up to the investors to accept it. Effectively, they have got to accept 77p on the pound. So they've got a guarantee loss of 23% of their investment, and they've got to extract and the way that the money, because as you know, a lot of the money that you talk about a permanent loss of capital. Some of the money was invested in small kind of unlisted biotech companies and so on, and it's literally gone to zero in many cases. So this has been sort of cobbled together as a result of payments and fines and things from the various parties involved. Look, I don't think any of us on this call were exposed in terms of client money. It doesn't do the industry any good. He was, by some margin, the most high-profile, as you say, Nick, investment manager in the marketplace. And this brings me back as well. It reminded me, I know that you read it as well, Nick. I read the book a couple of years ago called Built on a Lie, the book all about the kind of the Woodford story. Great book, really interesting. When because we were all active there, we were all kind of involved then and seeing this play out in real life. And I think for advisors, we come under some pressure because we would bring on new clients, things. They would say, "Oh, I've got some money, it's in Woodford, or it's in that, we want to keep that for certain." And we would sort of be saying to them, "Well, no, not really. It doesn't fit with our investment philosophy." And you had to have a few go into battle because our investment philosophy, as we've often spoken about, is quite boring, and there's no real star name. And I think as human beings, whether it's in sport or politics or certainly in money, we like to attach, outcomes to a name. We like a superstar. We like someone, he's always done well. She's always done amazingly well. And of course, they always do until they don't. And every one of those names, including my dear Uncle Terry, he's come unstuck as well more recently. His funds have been significantly underperforming, which they inevitably do. So it's just interesting that they finally brokered a deal. They've yet, obviously, it goes to the investors to accept it. I presume they will accept it because there's nothing else to be done. But that is absolutely a permanent, full-time loss of investment capital. This is not variable. This is loss. Over to you, Nick.
Then Andy. I mean, to be honest, I think 23p on the pound. I thought it was going to be worse than that. I'm not saying it's a good thing, and I'm sure the investors are rightfully pissed off. But I thought it could have been a lot worse than that, Andy.
I'm with you, Nick. I think it's an absolute bargain to get 77p back on the pound. They should count themselves incredibly lucky. Hopefully, most of the people didn't have more than, ideally, 5%, let's say 10%. If they went all in, then obviously, they're going to take a
Yeah,
big
but
hit.
that's the case. And unfortunately, with some of these superstars, it's a bit like the ARC fund. It's a bit like way back in the day, the Equitable Life. If you liked it, a lot of people went all in. They put more than 50% of their assets, because why wouldn't they? He was outperforming everything else.
I think it's quite staggering. They've returned over $2.5 billion, and they've still got some further payments to come. The whole thing's a mess trying to piece it all together after the fact. I think they got away very well, 77p in the pound. I've got a couple of clients that I've taken on that have those funds, whatever they're called, LF, whatever. We have to transfer them in specie. So I believe a payment will land in on the platforms that we look after. But yeah, I certainly didn't get involved in recommending any of that guff. The thing that is quite interestingly is Hargreaves Lansdown. Are they going to go after them? That's the whole big question. At the moment, there isn't anybody going after them, but there is going to be. I think there's a legal firm that's trying to piece something together for Hargreaves, because they were a huge promoter of this, and there's some individuals at Hargreaves we know who are also personal promoters of this, which I really, really, really can't stand. Anyway, that's it. Over to Carl for anything, or Nick.
Yes, if you read the book Built on a Line, you don't have to. Well, listen. If you listen to this, you're going to be in this thing of ours more than likely. But even if you're just Joe Public, if you get I think it was Owen Walker, wasn't it? Built on a Line. Yeah. It's a really riveting read for the entirely wrong reasons. It's still a tragedy, but it's a brilliant book. And Hargreaves Lansdown come out of it smelling of shit, to coin a phrase. Okay.
Although our friends St James's Place come out of it slightly better.
I think they come out of it really well. To be fair, they exited when they should, and they made the right call. So 100%. I just on the I think the book is amazing, and it's not necessarily give this book to everyone who wants to do active fund management, but if someone is following a star fund manager, I think what came out of the book was the level of arrogance that was just.
Oh yeah.
They were all guilty of it, and
hubris, mate, hubris.
Yeah, and I think,
no one came out of that well. The regulator, the ACD, the what you call them, the trustees, the administrators, all of them. It was just a complete and utter link. But the FCA as well. They were called into meetings. They sort of let them get away with it. It was a big name, big star fund manager. The arrogance and the hubris. It's a crazy story.
Okay. Now, Carl, you've got we talked about Woodford here. We talked about UK annuities. We talked about Colin Lawson in the Northwest. You've got an Irish story. Tell us about this launch that you're excited about, Carl, over the Irish Sea.
I wouldn't say I'm excited about it, and I wouldn't say it's linked to any of those previous stories. But in the last week, Irish Life, who'd be the biggest provider of pensions in the Irish market, they're owned by a Canadian company, despite their name, but they're a massive, massive player in the Irish market. And over the last few years, they've bought up some of the kind of corporate brokers, and they didn't really do much with them. And everyone was kind of going, that's a little bit strange. And they were all acting kind of independently of each other. And in the last week, they have decided, or they have announced that they're going to launch a company. They're going to jam these 3 or 4 or 5 firms together and call it Unio, I think. And I was like, whew, this is interesting. So what are they going to do? And the first line, or that one of the headlines I read was that they were going to disrupt the wealth management market in Ireland. And I went, well, I am now interested, right? What are they going to do, right? This is my bread and butter here. And so I read on, and there was loads and loads and loads of media articles on this. And I think I'll share one in the show notes. But just if anyone wants to Google it, it was in the Sunday Times yesterday and in all the broadsheets last week. So anyway, what are they going to do to disrupt the wealth management market in Ireland? Mainly 2 things. They're going to open up investments, all types of different investments, to high net worth individuals via a platform.
Why is that groundbreaking?
Well, wait till you hear the next bit. They're going to do financial planning. So they're going to do kind of cash flow modeling, just disrupting the Irish market with stuff that Meadows Ireland and some other really, really good firms in Ireland have been doing for the last, it's been fairly common for the last 5 years. But to be, I just thought this is a this is a little bit like, paper won't refuse ink. Like for journalists, financial journalists, to be putting out there that this is a disruption of the wealth management in Ireland. When platforms and they like, one of the things was, we're going to have passive funds on platforms. This has existed for like 10 years. This is not new, and yet we're open up any of the financial sections of any of the papers or websites that you want to look at in Ireland over the last week or so. And this is like massive news. And it's like, I got texts from clients texting me going, what is that not what we already have? And I'm like, yeah, it totally is. So look, I'm a little bit disappointed, not with Unio or Irish Life, because they did their job really, really, really well. And they got their PR and their marketing machine, and it stepped into action, right? But like, come on, guys, give us a break. And it's like, who has the most money? So they're going to pay all the media and all of that kind of stuff. Yeah. Anyway,
Carl, well, just let me ask you a question, because again, I am always trying to be aware of this curse of knowledge and the fact that we live in a bubble. And I assume that everyone does all the things that we do. And then I go every now and again, against my better judgment, I end up at a compliance conference or something like that, and I realize that no, very, very few people do what we do in terms of the advisory market, the broader advice market. If you were to estimate in Ireland, what percentage of the total Irish advice market does what Metis Ireland do? Like do proper planning, use platforms, use index, use factor-based funds, all that stuff. But what percentage would it be? Would it be 10%, 20%, less, more?
No, way less.
Way less, right.
Yeah. So that's not really the point. The point is that so I'll answer your question. There's about 1,200 advisors in Ireland, which is like about 700, probably too many. And that's what the central bank are saying. So they're trying to, squeeze that a little bit or a good bit. Of course, the best way of doing that is to introduce RDR, which we still do not have. And we're praying for and hoping for here, right?
Hilarious.
And they'll also see that I was deeply uncomfortable with the content of some of today's podcast, owing to the Irish versus UK cultural differences.
You will get your someday. My RDR will come, which was
that was remarkably spontaneous. Andy sent a message to Nick to do the drop, but anyway,
I didn't mean Carl. I just mean we've got a lack of drops in this episode.
Yeah, but so that's kind of the answer to your question, Alan. But there are still very few doing real financial planning and doing, investing through platforms and that kind of stuff, because of course you can't take the big upfront commish if you're, investing via platforms. Having said that, there are some really good ones now following our lead, and that is magnificent to see. And there's lots of people that I'm talking to now. I didn't really have anyone to talk to about this, and now there are, and that is brilliant.
Can I suggest something to you, my friend? Just an idea. Is it worth you taking out some sort of expensive an advert in the Irish quality papers and saying you may have read this announcement by Irish Life and Unio, just so you know, we've been doing this for 15 years, and something clean. You know what I mean? Or just throwing it out there. Get on the back of it.
I don't think it was to go to war with Irish Life.
I don't. And what did Irish Life do wrong? Absolutely.
No, they've done it. No, this is called newsjacking, and you just jump on the back of it. You say, we welcomed it. We welcome. I did on a minor way when Vanguard announced something a couple of years ago when they were doing their now, which we spoke about before, ill-fated attempt at financial planning, and they said something like, we realized that coaching and behavior and all that stuff is quite important to the advice piece, and I just said, welcome, Vanguard. We've been waiting for you. We've been doing this for 20 years, but we welcome you joining the gang. The more the merrier sort of thing. So you can make a bit of a joke about it, but certainly a message to your clients. If it's all over the press, you may have read this. Great. It's more sort of backing that we are on the right tracks, that a big organization is finally following in our footsteps.
Well, it's like pretty much all the robos. It's like pretty much all the robos. Hargreaves Lansdown have been doing that since 1981. So it was dreadfully embarrassing when they came out and said we're going to do online funds. I mean, really. Anyway.
All right.
Hopefully it's the dawn of a new era, and hopefully we do get RDR. Hopefully they do ban commissions, and there's a couple of things that we should be doing over here. But anyway, that's for another day. Interesting times here.
I think generally, Carl, it's a step in the right direction that a huge brand has recognised that, you know, proper investing and financial planning should be at the forefront. Albeit, I know this is a PR move.
No, Andy, I hear you. I agree with you. It remains to be seen, of course, that if they have a handy million to invest, will it be invested in the right things, and will they, in fact, do the real financial planning? And let's hope that they do. One journalist I read yesterday said it's kind of comical that they're saying that they're disrupting the Irish wealth management market. So there are people who understand that this stuff has already been there. I'm just a little bit disappointed with the ones that just flashed this out like this was a matter of fact, that nobody is doing this. And I'm like, anyway, it's broadly speaking, I would definitely welcome.
My final point on this, as a bit of an insider, I have been over to Ireland to do training with Irish Life, and the names that they've taken over and sort of created this one new brand with, I've done training with quite a few of those firms. So yeah, they are genuinely wanting to do proper financial planning. Someone who's been there and trained them. But yeah, all good. Over to you, Nick.
So I just need to take Andy out.
Just need to take Andy out. Would you do it for everybody? Would you? That'd be great. Thank you. As a social good. Okay, great stuff. Well, we've managed to witter on with the topical items for nearly over 41 minutes. So I think it's time we moved on to the favourite. The main part of the show, the meat and potatoes. I can hear the trap team behind me are busy peeling their spuds, getting the meat and potatoes ready. So we're going to launch off this episode 18's meat and potatoes. I think it's Mr. Smith. You're going to talk to us about critical non-essentials, my friend.
I am indeed. When the knife and forks sharpening calms down, I'll move on. And let me open this section, this meat and potatoes section, with a brief story, taking you back in time 20 years ago.
Grab yourself a drink, a very long drink. It's story time with Alan Smith.
I think having avoided doing a few drops, we might be entering drop territory for the next 5 or 10 minutes.
Drop goal territory, maybe.
Well, funny you should say that, because 20 years ago, casting your mind back, particularly you, Mr. Lincoln, 2003, sort of against all the odds, the England rugby team won the Rugby World Cup.
He drives. There's 35 seconds to go. This is the one. It's coming back for Johnny Wilkinson. He drops for World Cup glory. Yes! It's up. It's over. He's done it. Johnny Wilkinson is England's hero. Johnny Wilkinson. Johnny Wilkinson. Johnny Wilkinson. Johnny Wilkinson. Johnny Wilkinson.
Come back, Carl. Carl's left the studio in Australia.
Yeah. Don't worry, Carl. It's your year this year. Don't forget. We're looking forward to the World Cup and Ireland's performance. Anyway, so the story goes, England did win the World Cup. It wasn't the best England team in history. They won the World Cup 2003. Their coach at the time was Clive Woodward, now Sir Clive Woodward. And the following year, 2004, Clive Woodward wrote a book about the whole journey that he went on. The book is called Winning. And frankly, you can't do any better as a coach than win the World Cup with the team under your tutelage and guidance. And Clive Woodward's an interesting character if you know much about him. Clive Woodward's own career straddled the amateur era and the professional era. So Clive Woodward did have a business. He was in business. He had a job, and he was very senior in Xerox, if I remember correctly, out in Australia. And so he learned a lot. And I'm a big fan of the kind of the crossover between what you can learn from elite sport and what you can bring into business, and vice versa. And Clive Woodward's book encompasses a lot of these conversations. And he explains, obviously, the journey he went on with the England team when he took it over as coach. And it was run by these dusty old men in blazers at Rugby HQ down in Twickenham. And some of the innovation that he brought in. His original source of inspiration, having he was living in Australia at the time, and I've mentioned this on a previous episode, was a guy by the name of Paddy Lund, who was a dentist of all things, and he was kind of almost suicidal, this guy running his dental practice. He said, all I'm doing is inflicting pain on people on a regular basis. I don't enjoy it. And you can't get anyone to pay their invoices. You're chasing up. And it was just really, really a poor experience. So Paddy Lund closed his dental practice for a month, reinvented the whole thing, the entire client experience from start to finish, changed everything, and fast forward, became almost a celebrity dentist. He didn't advertise anywhere, but he had a waiting list to sign up. He charged more than anyone else, and he became a huge success. And a lot of the focus was on very, very small, what Paddy Lund christened critical non-essentials. So all these things individually by themselves, they were so not essential, but if you added them all together, they were critical to the ultimate success. So Woodward takes a lot of these ideas onto the rugby field and the whole rugby environment, and starts making a few small but really important changes. So a couple that I remember, for example, players would go on tour or they'd play away matches, and players would share rooms at the time.
Yeah.
So you would get some players that would, some are sort of early birds up at the crack of dawn, and some stay up late at night. So sleep was disturbed, and they thought, well, aren't we? Are we supposed to be a world-class elite sports team? Can't we have? Is the budget not big enough so everyone can have their own bedrooms, for goodness' sake? So that was one thing. They also they studied a lot of the results, and they noticed that the England rugby team at the time often started the match really well. They'd be up at half time, and then they go trudging out in the second half. They'd often lose matches in the second half. And so just a small psychological change was I think it seems strange nowadays, but they changed strips at half time. Instead of going back out with your muddy rugby shirt on, you got a brand new kit. And so you're mentally convincing yourself you were starting the match. You're playing 2 games today, starting the match all over again. As just a result of doing that, their win ratio went up. They were losing less games in the second half. And the last one that I'll say, there was dozens of these things. The last one, you guys are old enough to remember the old kind of cotton rugby jerseys that were just, you get wet and they get covered in mud and they straggle behind you.
Cotton traders, yeah.
Cotton traders, but they were made of, and so they studied videos of these, and where players were they were sort of running a bit, but they would get caught. Someone would grab this long trailing piece of cotton cloth, and they'd be sort of pull them down and they'd be tackled. And so, Woodward deployed, I can't remember, was it Nike or Adidas or one of those, those were the early days of what became sort of that sort of shark skin type material, really shiny, smooth material that rugby players and they wear to this day. So again, small thing, but if you add, and as I say, there was lots of them, add all those sort of small things together, compounded up, you move, because as we know, most at elite sport, there's often a few points between winning and losing. So the compound effect of that. And then, of course, some years later, very famously, Dave Brailsford took a very underperforming GB cycling team. And this is all covered, if you ever read the book, Carl's favorite book, Atomic Habits by James Clear, is covered in that. Great Britain cycling team was absolutely hopeless. And by the 2012 London Olympics, they absolutely dominated the sport. I think they won 12 gold medals. Then, as a result of what he called, it wasn't critical non-essentials, it was marginal gains. So marginal gains, small but effective, and that's all been very, very well documented. So could we take some of these ideas into our own businesses, and can we improve the client experience in order to make the difference between whether a client becomes a client or not, whether they stay with you or not, whether they refer and recommend you? Because it seems to work in elite sport. If you pay attention to the small things, some bigger and better things happen. I'll pause for breath there. I'm happy to share some of the ideas that we brought into our team as a result of reading that book, Clive Woodward book, years ago, and started to implement into our financial planning practice. But I'll pause for breath and invite anyone else to come and share any thoughts you've got. Okay, well, Carl, thank you for that, Alan. That was very interesting. Carl, maybe your thoughts on this, and then we'll go back to Alan to give us some practical examples in the financial services application of these ideas. Yeah, I think great story and really well told, Alan. I went to the Riskalyze conference over in the States a couple of years ago, and if you want to see, Andy, Humans Under Management is definitely the best one in the UK, but they do them differently over in the States. And after all, this is a podcast for financial advisors.
do yourself a favor and get to one of the really big ones over in the States. They are absolutely phenomenal. They go on for a couple of days, and they kind of put on shows. It's really, really, really good. So that's the first point. At the Riskalyze conference that I was at in Boston, Horst Schulze spoke at it, and he was the founder of the Ritz-Carlton Hotel Group, and he's a German guy, and he's still got a really strong German accent. And when he started off his talk, it was like, I'm not sure how this one is going to go. It was phenomenal. He's a really genuine guy, a guy who's, I just love hearing stories from people who've been there, done that. Yeah. And like the Ritz-Carlton, after all, were known for, and still are known for, like the ultimate service. So I think the point here is that there are things we should do, and you should do them, because after all, you need your clients to really, really value the experience. However, go back to a phrase that was mentioned earlier on by one of you guys. You need and want your clients to know, like, and trust you. And to get to know you and to like you, you need to give them a really good experience, an experience that has been thought out, an experience that you've put a bit of effort into, or a lot of effort into. And to make sure that, I remember talking to a marketing guy, Tony Frawley, who helped us to design the very first Metis logo. He was like, you got to take when your client is coming to see you, where's he going to park? Now, let's walk the journey. He made me walk the journey, right? And here's where he's going to go. And our whole thing here in this office is every part of our office looks like this room, right? We have white glass tables, or else, just white boardroom tables. It is, what do we not want it to be? It can't ever look like a private bank. So we've no mahogany tables. Nothing is dark. It's all bright colors. We're trying to, get across that whole feel of nice and relaxed, but at the same time, really, really professional. And we've thought through exactly, what happens when someone, to give them parking just before they arrive in. What happens when they come in? Who's going to be in the room to meet them? And then who comes into the room, how they get their coffee. I copied some stuff from Alan, and Alan sending out his coffees when I was in Capital was absolutely amazing with the Capital logo on it. We still haven't done that, Alan, right? I'm not sure if that would just...
You haven't copied everything.
No, it's one of the only ideas you've not stolen. That's one of the better ones.
Yeah.
No. This is the point. Just you guys won't admit to it, right? We are not trying to reinvent the wheel. None of us on this podcast have come up with any original ideas. We've just seen some stuff that has worked really well. And we're just putting our own twist on it. And we have. So like if you tell me that, I thought of this idea, you didn't. Because I can guarantee I'll find someone who came up with the idea first, right? Who's done it already. We're just, can you put them into a complete package and make it, something that's a really great experience. And look, there's lots of things that and I'm very interested to hear Alan's, right? Because he's obviously put some thought into this, right? But I saw a post from Stephanie Bogan on LinkedIn only last week, and it was relevant to this, right? And it was like, how can you make your client meetings like a Michelin star experience? And I'll put the link in the show notes to that as well. And that's what you're after. And it's like every touch point. How can you make it, 5, 6, 7-star experience? And that's what you should always be trying to do. And I'm always challenging the guys here. How can we make it better? How can we make it better? And when you think you have it nailed, then it's, let's go and look for other ideas. So yeah, I'll bring in somebody else and I'll pause for breath now.
Yeah, some great points already. We sell the invisible, so we've got to bring it to life as best we can. A couple of points that I've done. I'm one of my sort of key points on my website is ruthlessly client focused, and everything I do should be really from the client's point of view. But it's quite hard to straddle that, being in a regulated world, and the stuff we deal with is incredibly boring, and we do need to get them to fill in some forms every so often. So I try and keep the hassle factor for them down to a minimal. So, for example, if I book a meeting with you and you're coming to see me, I've got a meeting place in central London and a meeting place in the burbs. I send you a link. It's got everything on there, the sat-nav that you need. I've got a 45-second video that when you arrive, it shows you how to get to the front door and what buzzer to push. That's a video that took me sort of 5 minutes to film and 2 minutes to edit, and then that's sort of there forever. on my clients' big birthdays, so 0s and 5s, I've got a spreadsheet. So if they're 60 or 55 or 75, they'll get a copy of the Times from the day that they were born from historicalnewspapers.com. That's something that I'm a big fan of. If they've been a client of mine and they've gone through 2 big birthdays, then they get sort of a Fortnum & Mason's basket. I try and do as many links to the stuff that we repeat all the time. So I've got a link to my sort of investment options. I've got a link to the joining process. I've got a link for what the annual planning meeting looks like. Hidden links on the website that's obviously scrollable and browsable on any sort of browser that they use. Because it's just stuff that we repeat all the time. I've spoken before that I'm available on WhatsApp, and if it's a couple, we've got a group together. I just want low friction for them to contact me, and then the moment they contact me, I'm obviously totally on top of it. So yeah, I've given a couple of ideas there, got a few more, but back to Alan to share your list, mate.
You've covered quite a few good ones. Did you copy most of them from me? Can't remember.
As if you're going to film a video outside your office and hit a buzzer and then go inside and edit it and upload it. Yeah,
done it long time ago.
Bullshit.
I'll tell you, but we had the luxury when we moved to our current office a few years ago. It was literally an empty shell, so you could design. You hire office layout design people, and so what we did at the time was try to reflect the client journey, as we call it. So we have a room which is called the lounge, and it's very specifically designed. It's all kind of soft furnishings, low lighting. It's designed, in my mind anyway, as a kind of upmarket coffee shop. It's how it should be, or a sort of a boutique hotel style. So no screens, doesn't look like a business office. And that is designed to be for those initial informal, discovery meeting conversations. Tell us about your life, tell us about your background, so everyone can relax during that. And then we go for the next part of our sort of client onboarding process. We go to a different room and people. Now, of course, COVID blew all that up the water, and everyone went onto Zoom, and a lot of our meetings are still on Zoom. But increasingly, we're coming back, and I think the importance of controlling your environment, I think that is really valuable to us. And in my mind, why wouldn't you do these things? Because once you put a bit of effort into it, you can rinse and repeat every time. So it's worth spending a day, a week, a month, and say, what else could we do? You're right. We invested years ago. Because I remember going to offices in my broker consultant days, and you get some crusty cup of coffee in an old mug or something like that. I thought, why wouldn't you just invest in good china, invest in a high grade coffee making machine, like bean to cup coffee making machine? And so you can do cappuccinos and lattes and all that sort of stuff. And you're right, Carl. When you go to Costa Coffee or something, they do this coffee and you have to ask for a cappuccino. They do the little sort of coffee bean or something on the top. And I thought, I wonder where you get those things. So you Google it, go on Amazon, and you can get one made with your own logo. Everyone's got a logo. So you might as well put a coffee shaker. And I tell you, you pop that down in front of a client, a nice cappuccino. We've got these glass coffee cups, and it's got the logo on front. It might come across as a bit twee or a bit naff, but I've certainly had many a person say, "Wow, if you pay this much attention to how you make coffee, I don't really understand what you do with the financial stuff."
Can I just say, Alan, I was blown away by the experience in your office. I visited your office in 2018 for the first time, and I came back going, we've work to do. It was an amazing experience. It really was. So
thank you. Thanks for saying that. And you want to constantly improve it. And I often think, a reverse engineer, somebody's leaving, especially if they've come there for the first time. And it's a husband and wife or a couple. I'm always imagining they're walking down the street, they're going off for lunch together or something. And they're going to say, that was pretty good, wasn't it? That was interesting. I liked how this, so small, another small thing in there. I know, because some of those initial meetings, they're quite long. They're a couple of hours long. So we've got a timer there. After 60 minutes, somebody else comes in, just politely knocks on the door. Anyone, any other refreshments, or do you want to take a comfort break now? Oh, I wouldn't mind using the loo now. Or actually, I would love another coffee. Yes, thank you. Do it. Just think about it in advance. And so it's systematic spontaneity is the word. It looks like it's really spontaneous, but it's systemized. We know it. We're planning it. It's repeatable, and I'll tell you, it works. And the last thing I'll say on this for the moment. So that's the kind of initial onboarding. I'm a big believer in this concept that I call it the first 100 days. The first 100 days of any new professional relationship are so important. I'm into the lifetime value of this client relationship. I want them to be clients of ours, hopefully for a decade and more. The work you do is like any relationship, actually. The work you do at the front end, the investment you make at the front end will pay dividends after time. So having things, I should say, when we're going through that initial onboarding process, we give them a gift. And it's just a simple gift. It's a book. And it usually is the Paul Armstrong book, Enough, as an early stage. Now, there's something really important about that. One thing is it's a gift. There's a law of reciprocation. People like a gift. People don't throw a book in the bin. Even if they never read it, they're not going to chuck it, probably, or sit around. A nice little inscription in the front, because that book, it's not the best book in the world, but it does articulate pretty well kind of what we do and how much is enough and the value of financial planning and so on. So you give them a gift. And often people will come back to me and say, I've read that. Fantastic. It really, really articulates it well. So you're building a relationship. You're building it over time. And when someone comes on board, they get a welcome pack. They get a letter from me, it says, grand, but people quite like that. A handwritten note from us. And actually the last thing I'll say is we'd also give them, if we've done the research where we know what their hobbies and all their passions, know what they're interested in, when they have come on board, we'll often give them a kind of a coffee table type book as well. If they're passionate about golf or something, 100 best golf courses of the world, or they love sailing, or they love whatever it is, a nice coffee table book that sits in their lounge or somewhere that they can. It's just part of the building a relationship and the first 100 days of when we first engage with them. That is memorable. That is, people will talk about that, and it's more than they're going to get from the proverbial private bank down the road, who really only care about the money. That's it.
Okay, Andy, and then Carl.
Some superb points there, Alan. Yeah, your office is amazing, mate. So you've done a cracking job with that.
Oh, for goodness sake, can we stop with the loving?
No, keep going. This is so unusual. I love it.
I was going to say that's the only thing he beats me with. I'll leave it as that. Right. I do like Alan's funny sayings. The funniest saying he's ever said was corporate athlete. I'm just going to let that one sit. I've got I was really into.
It's true though.
I was really into doing these tiny things when I first set up Maven Advisor. I've sort of taken my foot off the gas now, I suppose, as the business has grown and I'm sort of reaching capacity. But anyway, I've got a funny story. When I first was setting up the phone lines for Maven Advisor, I obviously never want to answer the phone. I never want a phone to ring in my office. All of my clients have got my BAT number, my mobile number. But I've got a public number that people can call, an 0203 number or whatever. And we were sitting there saying, well, how are we going to answer the phones? Again, that whole question, how do you answer the phones? And we said, well, what do the Ritz do? We said, well, we don't know what the Ritz do. Let's call them. So we called the Ritz to see how they answered the phone. And they were like, hello, the Ritz. How may we be of service? That's what the Ritz said. Hello, the Ritz. Good morning, the Ritz. How may we be of service? So if you call Maven Advisor now, the saying that they have to say on the screen in front of them, these people that work in a large answering call center, is that, like, good afternoon, Maven Advisor, how may we be of service? You've probably noticed that it's just hard to say that. I've struggled to say that. So you call Maven Advisor now and someone goes, good afternoon, Maven Advisor, how can we be of service? And I'm like, no, you're not going to freaking do it like that. You're going to say, good morning, Maven Advisor, how may we be of service? But they don't do it. So find my number on the website and call that number. It will cost me £1 to receive these pointless messages. But yeah, that's how it should be answered.
Yeah. So everyone listening to this, call Andrew. We might be able to get up to £1,000 bill for him if we do it right.
Yeah. Anyway, over to Carl.
Very good, yeah. Funny, like, Alan, listen to you recount the setup in the office. I actually experienced all that, but the funny thing was back in 2018, you gave me a book.
Yeah,
and the book was your 5-year plan.
Oh yeah.
Be fair to say, the 5-year plan that I wrote down in 2018.
Yeah. Man plans, God laughs. We've talked about that as well.
See the last episode.
Yeah.
Should I call Maven Advisor now? I've got it lined up on my phone.
Should
we do it?
Advisor. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, go on then. Yeah. Do it live. See what happens.
I'll carry on talking about the books. Yeah, I've sent loads and loads and loads of books to prospects, new clients.
Maven Advisors, how can I help?
Sorry,
you want to sack them off, mate?
Sorry, Nick.
How can I help?
Sorry, Nick. Call again just to see the inconsistencies. One more time. Call again because someone else will pick it up.
Oh, Christ! Okay.
That ain't the Ritz-Carlton, mate.
Wait. We're here again. The book. It goes.
Shush.
Maven Advisors, how can I help?
Same thing. That's the same lady. She's going to complain about this prank caller.
Anyway,
as I always say, it's very easy to come up with these ideas and say you're going to copy them. Executing is the difficult part, right? You need to execute.
That's what my clients have got my personal.
And full disclosure for me as well. I say all these things. Are we consistent about it all the time, every time? Of course we're not. No, and we forget, and then we remind ourselves.
I think a point a client made to me only in the last few weeks was I used to go into my private bank and feel really nervous going in and feel really stupid coming out. So again, like if you're thinking about if you're doing real financial planning, you want your clients to be relaxed coming in. Yeah. You want ultimately, this mightn't happen for a while, but ultimately I'm looking forward to my financial planning meeting. Yeah. It was a good experience. We had a bit of fun. We went through, we modeled a few scenarios. We had a bit of crack with it. And then it's like, looking forward to coming back. So
actually, you know what? I'm thinking about that for those the first meeting. If you're going to invite people to your office, I know some of you guys or Nick work from home, but if you are inviting them to an office and you've never had any experience of it before, now this is what we do. We've been doing it forever. Just to tell them in advance what to expect. What we do is we sit down for an informal conversation. We'll invite you to, share your thoughts and ideas, and you give them. You can either, we don't, but you could do a short video. You could do a personalized one nowadays. Take 2 seconds on Loom, but you do want to put people. I know Nick, you're looking sort of disconcertingly there, but I've certainly had situations where clients, so often the less financially involved spouse, who said, I was really nervous about coming in here. They think they're going to be grilled about their sort of investment expertise or something, and just say, it's not about that at all. We're going to talk about life and family and values and the future. And so it's very relaxed. You tell us what sort of, do you want a coffee? Do you want a tea? All that sort of thing, just to sort of prepare people for it and reduce that nervousness. And often, as you say, maps and directions. Our office is it's central, but it's a bit tricky to find the actual office address. And someone comes in a bit flustered, 10 minutes late. Get them calm down, nice. The water, fresh water, lemons, lime, ice, all that stuff, small things.
Right.
But it all adds up. And that's in summary, critical, non-essential, small things. But you do 10, 20, 30 of those, and the experience is just entirely different.
Okay. Andy, and then I shall wrap up on this.
My previous office used to say dogs welcome, and a lot of clients used to come in with their dogs, which was a nice touch. The book I used to gift the most was called The Number by Lee Eisenberg. And then in recent times, I gift Simple Wealth, Inevitable Wealth by Nick Murray. I used to buy batches of them from David Hearn at Financial or whatever it was. And on it, I used to write gifted by Andy Hart, a Maven advisor. And then that was that, if they passed it on in the future. Over to you, Nick.
Okay, just closing on this thing. I'm making it as easy as clients to do what they need to do, right? We know clients need to do certain things. And critical non-essentials from my point of view is about making it as easy for clients just to do the stuff. And that's easy for me as well, to be frank. So I'll quickly close on this. So that I'm changing my the investment proposition, but I don't have discretionary permissions, so I have to do it on an advised basis per client. So I'm doing it over the next 12 months, saying, look, we got these 4 funds. We're replacing it via one fund, but I'm telling my clients via a very short 3-minute Loom video where we outline why we are doing this, what the rationale is. And in that Loom video, there's the Dropbox link embedded in the video, because you can do that with Loom, which is really nice to embed a link. They click on that and it opens up a hidden page, Andy. One of these hidden pages on my website where the key facts document is. No, they can read all that crap so their eyes glaze over, and then they give consent. Very easy. Name, I consent to this switch. They hit submit, and I get an email for my audit trail. I've got an audit trail now. They've looked at the key features documents. They've given their consent, and it's done. And I can just crack on with it. We don't have a back and forth, an email chain. There aren't ugly attachments. It's just about making it as easy for the clients to do what they need to do. And I'm really on a massive drive to simplify everything, to really get stuff down to an essence. Now, I put a tweet out last week, didn't I, when I paraphrased Tolkien's poem about the ring. One ring to rule them all, and in the darkness bind them. And I said, okay, so one plan to guide them all, 3 pots to fund them, one fund to fill them all, and in the simplicity mind them. And that's I'm on this mega drive now, basically. 3 pots, 1 fund, 1 plan, your life. Let's do it, and getting rid of all the extraneous crap, which I've never really had much of anyway. Beautiful. But I'm really getting it simple, stupid. Beautiful. Just. And it's so antithetical to what everyone expects, and I'm kind of thinking, yeah, well, that's got to be right then. So, and I don't think using the Loom video, and I know you do, Alan, but I know that less than 5% of advisors use Loom creatively or in that kind of way, But hey, they just want to print stuff off and send shit out in the post. Oh, what can you do? Okay, listen, we're at 1 hour and 9 minutes, 70 odd minutes in, so I think we should get along to the. She's always there on time. There's Posty at the door. She has a bulging sack, and it's, of course, full of our Trappist questions, the questions that you, the dear Trappist audience, submit. You can do that via the link in the so-called show notes, or go to our Twitter handle @Advisor Podcast. In the pinned link there, in the pinned tweet, there's a link there to do so as well. Submit a question, any question, doesn't matter. Give us your name. We will come to you. We're getting through them all, and let's have a look at what we got today. This is quite a long letter. I'm going to struggle with the opener for this one. This chapess hasn't given their name for reasons that will become clear. Love the show. Seriously, it's great. I'm a huge fan. Thank you very much. And I want to remain anonymous at the moment, please. I'm a chartered financial planner who's been part of a large multi-tied network, not SJP, for a long time, and considering starting my own small boutique IFA firm as a one-person business. Basically, the question is, for the various outsourced parts of your business, Andy and Nick, who should I be looking at, and what do I need to do to ensure I've got everything covered? Software, system, services. Anonymous, can I just refer you to I put out a 10-minute another Loom video a couple of months ago with my tech kind of workflow and all the tech I use. It's concise, it's punchy, it outlines exactly the process I use for clients during the annual planning meeting cycle. There'll be a link to that in the so-called show notes. For compliance, I use a firm called the Compliance Department. I use Simply Biz since 2008, but basically they don't get it. They don't get small lifestyle financial planning businesses, that's for sure. So I use the Compliance Department. Andy, do you have any tips, or have we covered that question?
Yeah, we've covered that. All good.
I would also say, have a look at what Timeline are doing. I know I've mentioned that a couple of times before. There is an end-to-end process now with Timeline. Have a look what they're doing. That's all I'll say.
Okay, lovely. Thank you very much for your contribution there, Aaron. The second letter that I'm going to open is from a chap called David Milne, Milne. Hi guys, I'm really enjoying your shows, including the banter. Question: you've covered businesses set up whereby there's an advisor supported by a power planner and administrators, and certain work tasks throughout the advice planning process are obviously for an administrator, and others for a power planner, and others for an advisor. But can you maybe give, and this is directed more to Carl and Alan, I guess, can you maybe give some examples on where tasks between these roles get blurred and how to avoid such crossover? Thank you. So basically, clear delineation on the delegation. One of you two, have fun with that.
I'll just say, well, first of all, we've got job descriptions and task descriptions for each. And you're right. So this was discussed before under the conversation we had around the pod structure, which we operate on. I know Carl operates on as well. And I think that this is of particular interest. I certainly had individuals follow up me one-to-one, and I've had sort of follow-up conversations with them because I think increasingly people are interested in that as an operating model, but they're keen to understand some of the granular details. Now, I'm going to go back to your point before, Nick, about simplicity. We can sometimes try to overcomplicate things. It's not a bad thing if people do, from time to time, might do someone else's work. It's not, oh, I'm a power planner, I never do this, or I'm an advisor, I shouldn't do that. It should all be quite a fluid experience. However, there are some core activities. So you need to just unpack everything that you would do from the first moment you see a potential client all the way through to annual planning meetings and so on, and work out all the specific tasks that are expected to be done, and then work out who does what. Of course, we understand it shouldn't be really a hierarchical structure, but administrators, in our experience, are less experienced, less qualified. Our power planners, which we call associates, are chartered financial planner level. They're level 6. They are more experienced. They are more technically competent on average. And so they tend to do more complex work. Our associates / paraplanners are usually, if not always, in client meetings, which is a slightly different thing. So the paraplanner role is like a quasi-advisor role. The paraplanner sits in the middle, is involved in administrative tasks, is accountable and responsible for the work getting done for that pod, and the advisor obviously is leading on the in an ideal world, the advisor just does the advice. Going back to what we said at the very beginning, listen to Colin Lawson at Equilibrium talking about how his team work. They've got 80 or 90 staff, I think. I think they've got 80 staff and 8 advisors. They've got 10-to-1 ratio. For sure, their advisors are only seeing clients, are doing nothing else. That's great. That's taking it to some extreme, much more than we're doing at the moment. But I think that the answer to the story is work. Everything needs to be done. And from a commercial, profitable viewpoint, you want to delegate to the person that can do the job to the level of competence and satisfaction for the client and for the business. And if that is an administrator, paraplanner, or an advisor, that's how you get it done. But it doesn't matter if there's a bit of crossover along the way. It's good that everyone learns each other's roles and responsibilities.
Okay, Carl, do you have anything to add, sir?
That was very comprehensive. I would say the best, we had a little bit of this, so the best way of getting around kind of crossover or people doubling up on work is there's a pod meeting every single week that's led by the advisor. But in advance of that, to use his words, paraplanner and administrator have a meeting prior to that. So my pod meeting was this morning, actually at 9:30 Monday morning, and the guys would have had a pre-meeting on Friday. Like, these aren't long meetings. It's not. We don't have to talk about 400 cases. Like, these are, our meeting this morning was 20 minutes, and I don't know how long their meeting on Friday was, but I guess it's just to make sure that everybody knows exactly what's happening with every single case, right? But it's like, you do that, yeah, okay, and it's like tick, 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 and then they just bring me through who needs to do what, and if I need to come in on 1 or 2 cases, which is all it normally is, then I'm updated on that. I'm tasked to do it, and everyone knows what they're doing. But yeah, I agree with everything Alan said.
Okay, I think we'll draw a line under that, if that's okay. Again, just conscious of the time. So without any further ado, let's move on to what many people call Culture Corner. And Mr. Smith, we'll fire off with you. You've got a book by Alex Hormozi.
Yes, this is just following on from, I think it was Andy who mentioned last episode, the one before. This guy, he just appeared in my radar all of a sudden. I see him everywhere now. Alex Hormozi. He was on the Modern Wisdom podcast. I think he's been in a couple of others as well recently. And I like how he talks, I like his language and what he says. And he's had huge amounts. He's only about 35 years old. Huge amounts of success, personally and professionally in his line of work. And he's now, he's written a book. Well, he's got a new book coming out, but the current one, which has been out for a little while, called $100 Million Offers. 100 million offers. $100 million offers, I should say. Interestingly, at the beginning
What's it called?
It's called $100 million because it's got, I'm just thinking in my mind, it's got the dollar sign. So it's not, I said 100 million offers. That sounds like you got 100 million. No, okay. There's a monetary thing, right? You got there in the end. Interestingly, and I go, this is a quick sidebar, is that he says at the very beginning of the book, he prices all his content, books and everything else at the lowest possible price that the platform through which you buy it will accept. In Amazon's case, it's 99 cents or 99 pence. He says, I would really encourage you to buy this on audiobook as well as the written book, the Kindle book, because the brain takes in things in different ways, and it will, the information will seep into your brain far better. And he said, I'm not doing this to make another 99 cents. I do it for free, but the platform won't allow me to do, which is quite interesting, which is perhaps subject for another time, because you guys, I know, are big into Audible. Well, that's another bit big. And I usually just read books, usually written digitally. Anyway, I think it's a fantastic book, and there's so many applications to our work, because he talks about making offers to your clients or prospective clients, a combination of pricing and how you pitch for value, and the use of guarantees and naming your products and services. Lots of practical ideas, tips, and hints that would apply to many people listening to this. So big shout out. I would recommend Alex Hormozi and his book, whatever it's called.
Okay. Thank you very much, Alan. Mr. Hart, the podcast, The Bank of Dave Fighting Against the Elite.
Yeah, so the first recommendation is a podcast on the James English Show. You can listen to it on your podcast platform or YouTube. This is the guy that's famous for Bank of Dave from Barnsley, a very straight-talking northerner. He's got some great sort of inspirational story, really. He's tried to open up a bank and he's fighting against the elites. I think it's a Netflix film that's come out. You're rubbing off on me. You're rubbing off on me, mate. It's a Netflix film that's come out. I don't know what the name of the film's called, but you search Bank of Dave, it comes up. It's a sort of feel good.
It's called Bank of Dave. That's the name of the film.
Bank of Dave. Okay, it's a feel good movie.
That's what it's called, and it's good. It's quite good.
All right,
nice family film.
Right.
Yeah.
Put a sock in it, mate.
Absolute shambles.
Okay, so that's my first recommendation. My second recommendation is an awesome book that I recommend everybody reads immediately. It's called How to Invest by David Rubenstein. I love these books that speak to successful, famous, multi-decade investors. He speaks to people like Ray Dalio, Mark Andreessen, Sam Zeal, Larry Fink, Seth Klarman, to name a few. It's different chapters. I recommend listening to it on Audible because it's interviews from David Rubenstein, who's a famous sort of private equity investor with the Carlyle Group. So he's a wealthy billionaire himself, and he interviews lots of famous investors. It's a sort of, a journey through all the different types of ways to make money in the investing world. I recommend definitely checking out this book, and don't read it, listen to it on Audible if that's your favoured platform. Next.
Okay, thank you. You've got a thing on there about dumbbells, Andy, but should we just, for the purposes of brevity, and should we just skip over that?
We'll talk about that next time. Trap 19.
Okay. Talk about it next time. Yeah, maybe not. Mr. Widger, the All-In Pod. We love the All-In Pod. And I mean, the All-In Pod owes us a favour. We inspired the All-In Pod, and they're copying our format. Go ahead, Col.
All-In Pod is all about this. Well, not all about it. A lot of it is devoted to the SpaceX launch. Go listen to it. It's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah. Okay. Lovely said. Lovely. Well said. It is good. It's sometimes some episodes are better than that, but that's a cracker, as you guys never said, because we don't do stereotypes on this show. Thank you. Nailed that one. Right. I think we're near the end, don't you? I think we've done an hour and 21 minutes. Nothing else to add. Are we okay with that, guys?
Can you do?
Okay, Trappist. If that is the case, that's a wrap. So thank you for your precious time. Go on, Andy. Mumble behind me, so I have to start again. What are you saying?
I was going to say, can you stand up for the YouTube viewers to see your outfit in its full glory? Come on! Hey,
if you're listening to this, please do find this on YouTube. Oh my Lord!
He's dressed up.
Please, no! Put it away.
He's dressed like the Romanian flag today, which is very interesting. Cracking legs, cracking pins.
Or the Ukrainian
one,
maybe.
Matey. Yeah. Never mind.
You wouldn't be allowed in the Ritz-Carlton dressed like that today. I'll tell you.
Jesus Christ.
Absolute shambles.
Right, okay. Thank you, Trappist, for your precious time and your input. Please do rate the show. Leave a 6 out of 5 star review on iTunes. Like and subscribe to our YouTube channel so we can eventually flog relentless advertising at you on it. Until the next time from the Trap Pack, it's adios and take care out there, folks. Goodbye. Get the hell out of our computers.
Bye.